Okay, so I would definitely want to think more and like talk more about Homelander and Billy Butcher because of how excellent they were, and like probably make more videos on them as I go. Like the first thing I would say is that Homelander, although I was not happy with him literally like dying, the better would have been if he is put up in a prison somewhere, like or if he is literally like just left astray, like on the, if he just left astray on the road, like just do whatever you want to do, because he is of no use anymore. But still, like his writing, like even in the ending, it was like very okay. Means it was fine. Like they actually tried to put similarities between him and of course the guy, like the guy who started World War II, Adolf Hitler, and they actually tried to, like he literally, like even his makeup when he was beaten up by Billy Butcher, he's bleeding from his nose and he's literally looking like him. Like if you see the photograph of Hitler at the very end, and he's like like he when even if you see his his pictures of his dead body when they recover, it looks very similar to what they try to make up with, like Homelander. And they already tried to establish like a very important thing between Homelander and like Hitler. One very similar thing that, like like in the scene with Mr. Marathon, they say that Homelander doesn't do any drugs, doesn't drink any alcohol, and he's shown to only drink milk. Like probably he doesn't even drink any coffee. Like he doesn't even, like he only likes like milk. And the same thing was about Hitler too. Like Hitler was also like more or less like he did not, like he used to take a lot of like any alcohol. He used to take drugs because otherwise because he was, I think, suffering from Parkinson's, so I think he had to take drugs, and he was high. But yes, he was like a non-alcoholic, and he was even a vegetarian. They don't show Homelander as being a vegetarian or a vegan, but they tried to establish that similarity, and it was cool. It was something nice. I just hope, man, that they could had established it better between Homelander's ending. Means like it would have been much better if he was just left to live, means, and probably even if they could have like spin it in a really nice way, if like he becomes like a cult leader, and there are still people who believe in Homelander, and still I think they might, if they were going to have like future, in the future, if they are going to talk about all this like in The Boys Mexico or somewhere, I think they are going to show that Homelander, there are still people who do believe in Homelander, and they still believe that Homelander was a good guy, and that video is AI generated, and that would have looked that would be a very nice plot point. But they could have played a little bit with this in this season itself, like that Homelander is still, after doing all those things, because he's such a big political figure, and such a big personal and public figure, he's still left to live, and is living his normal life, without any superpowers. He's still able to live, and probably means that, of course, he's very frustrated from inside because he doesn't have any powers. But either he's living his life as a normal person, or either he's living his life in a jail, in a solitary confinement, or probably he's living like a normal political figure, and all those things. It would have made a very interesting, it would have looked very, very, very interesting. Like if they had done something like that, it would have looked really cool and really like dark and grim, and reminiscent of what really happens in the real world. That important people, nothing really happens to them. If somebody is really important in a good country, they always survive, and the children also, they all flourish. And also, if they had shown that, it would have been really fun. It would have been something good. But they went another way, and they were more about Billy Butcher and setting his revenge. What would have been much better is Huey comes there, and Yui says that he doesn't deserve it. Like Homelander does not deserve any of that, and it would have been awesome if, like, uh, the ending of even Billy Butcher. It would have been awesome if, when Terror dies and Billy Butcher leaves, and then Yui tells Starlight to bring Marie Muro from wherever she is, and, cure Terror, and then they all head to, War Tower, and then they all tell Billy Butcher that, hey, you see that not all superheroes are bad. You're she made Terror come back to life. That would have looked really cool too, but they didn't go that way, unfortunately. It's crazy. They would have done a lot of nice stuff, but it looked very bland and very obvious what they did with the show, and it was it was not really something to cherish upon. And Billy Butcher, if Terror was alive, he would not do any of that thing, so that would have been so Billy Butcher did not have to grow out and do anything like that. So they had Marie Muro, and they would have used her for something really nice, cure someone, like if somebody is dead, even though in this guy, what is the name of this guy, Frenchie, she might have helped cure him as well. If they had tried, it would have looked really nice, but they did not try it at all. It's sad. It's very sad. They did not even try to write her properly. If they tried, it would have been a very good show. Of course, they had time constraints because they had to show so many different things, like She-Line and all this. There are time constraints, and even this character of Gunther Von Alice, they show that Homelander beats him. Homelander, the guy, it's a parody. And why is your greatest villain